Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Lindsay Coble.
Dr. Noelle Crosby, and we're the Sound Sisters, and this is the Hearing Diaries. Today, before we begin interviewing our guest, I want to share with you our Be Curious segment. And our Be Curious segment today is focused on a MVP webinar that Lindsay's actually going to be doing. And that is going to be on Thursday, October 16th, and anyone can sign up for it. It's at 9 o'clock Pacific time and 12 o'clock Eastern time. And they're going to share just forecasting about trends and how Lindsay uses MVP to plan your future and to see what's happening in her office. And she's going to be joined by how do you say, Ollie?
Ollie Luke. Ollie
Ollie
Luke.
Luke
hmm
from Orange and Gray, as well as Tom Goyne of
hmm
Aberdeen Audiology. So everyone can sign up for that. We can put the link below this webinar, below our show, so you can see that. But yes, be curious about what Lindsay has to say about using MVP.
Thanks, Noelle. Thanks for the shout out. I'm happy to share how I use MVP. And I know many people out there utilize MVP, and I think we can always learn a new tool or trick, kind of where to click
Oh, I
to
love it.
open our
Yes.
eyes to things.
Yes.
So let's shift gears to Tish. So today on the Sound Sisters, the Hearing Diaries, we are joined by Dr. Tish Gaffney, vestibular specialist, educator at Nova Southeastern University, and the current president of the American Academy of Audiology. As she completes her presidency, Tiff brings a rare vantage point, balancing national leadership with day-to-day teaching and patient care. We'll talk about what she's learned at the helm, the surprises she's learned along the way, and where she sees our profession headed. Tish, welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Yes,
Thanks for
thank
having
you.
me.
Thank you, thank you. And today, we were just talking before, today is actually her last day
Oh my gosh, we
as
got on our
president
last
of
day.
AAA.
Interesting.
Yes, so let's just talk to you a little bit about that, Tish. So, stepping into the AAA presidency, what vision did you carry for that? And how did that evolve as sometimes things get, you have a plan and then they get derailed. So, how did that evolve as the year went forward?
Yeah, so being president was actually a goal of mine since I was a student, really. And so, I think everybody goes into it with kind of what they have in mind, like that their year will be. But I tried to take it and really just step back from myself and say, okay, what really does the academy need? A lot of people along the way asked me, like, well, what is your goal for the year? And really, my goal was to make sure that I left the academy in a better position than when I got it. And that should be really the goal of any, leader of an organization, is that, it's not really about me, it's about what our organization needs and how we can progress that. So, that took a lot of different paths throughout the year. Some of it is coordinating with our colleagues from other organizations, inside audiology, outside of audiology, learning to see, and figuring out what are some of our weak points and how can we make some changes to make those better. So it was an exciting year to learn more. And, last time when I served on the board of directors for AAA, they're always like, this is the most you'll ever know about audiology. And then and then being president was even more so. It's like drinking from a fire hose sometimes with so many different things coming at you. But I really enjoyed my year. It was great to meet with, um, you know, like our state leaders and having those meetings. And both of you attended those, and meeting with, our different board members and council chairs and various volunteers. It was really quite an eventful year for me. Thanks.
Would you say, were there any unexpected challenges, or how did that change? How did things change your perspective on the industry as a whole?
Yeah, I think there was definitely some things that kind of popped up out of nowhere, or not necessarily out of nowhere, but unexpectedly.
hmm
Towards the end, we had like the AAO letter that kind of popped up out of
hmm
nowhere. But it's also just trying to keep a pulse on everything going on across the country. And so you get so wrapped up, I'm in Florida, and
hmm
so kind of know what's going on in Florida. But then things pop up all over the rest of the country, and you're just trying to keep up with that. So that was kind of a challenge. Thankfully, the staff has been on top of it, and so they helped kind of shepherd me along to notify me of all the other issues going on. And just how complex each area is between our different, regional areas, like the different states, but also our different specialties within audiology, and what different specialties need at this point in time has been really interesting, and what other support is needed.
So much that I feel like I don't even recognize sometimes, being a private practice audiologist, like intraoperative monitoring, something that our colleagues do that I don't have awareness of, vestibular. I'm sure it's so complex when you get to
we'll
that
hear more
level.
about her vestibular experience too, because I don't do any vestibular. But I also wonder, this is just an add-on question that I was just thinking about. I was thinking, how much time did you really have to devote? And so how did you work that out with your position at Nova? I'm sure you had to, you had to tell them beforehand and figure all that out, but it must have taken you a lot of time to devote to it.
It is a lot of time. There's a lot of different meetings. So you have your meetings that are kind of set in stone for the year, like our board meetings, our council chair meetings, and then we have other like quarterly meetings, like with the state presidents, or with I was meeting every month with the presidents or the leadership from the other organizations. So there was a lot of meetings throughout the year. And then travel on top of it. So going to other conferences or traveling for our board meeting. So thankfully, the university, part of our requirements for our contracts and promotion is service. And that includes service to our profession. And so that is something that is somewhat supported. And thankfully, my department was pretty flexible, as well as my students were pretty flexible with, me needing to like move a clinic day from here to there, or recording a class instead of being there live. So yeah, it was a lot of meetings. That was probably one of the more
a lot of meetings.
Like, in my mind, I was like, it's going to be a lot of meetings, but no, it was a lot of meetings.
It's a good thing Zoom. Like, I wonder what they did. I guess it would just be phone call me. I think when I was on a committee years ago, it was the committee about reimbursement, Medicare. It was a Medicare. I don't remember what the name of the committee was, but I remember just like phone calls and interesting. I'm sure that shifted a lot too. But what do you think was your biggest accomplishment that you're most proud of as you're closing out your presidency?
So one just happens to be coincidental, and that's the vestibular certification that we put forward. So that was a proposal that Devin McCaslin and I, and then later on Sam Biddle joined us, that we had put forward to the Academy like years ago. And then it came before the board, and it just so happened to kind of fulfill this year. It wasn't necessarily planned, but it was a great coincidence. And so I think it was something that our profession really needed, a professional organization really supporting vestibular. And we've made some other really good changes. And the one thing is that, I have what I did with my board and my communication with them, but a lot of the other things that any president accomplishes, especially any president who only has a year, is typically a continuation of something that somebody already started, or the next president after you, it'll come to fruition during their term. So, I was lucky that we came up with the Distinguished Fellow category for honors this year. But that was a process that had started before me, but we finalized the rubric and we had our first inaugural submission. We have some new ABA opportunities as well. So we have the new educational audiologist one, and that just happened to come to us from the educational audiology group. So we have some other things going on, but really it's such a team effort. I just get to take all the glory in it, but, really it's a lot of work from a lot of different people. So, every single thing that we've been able to accomplish has really been that team effort between our volunteer leadership and our staff.
Right. I always just know, like, being on a committee, and also even right now I'm serving on the committee to figure out about the grand rounds and the featured session, not the featured session, but the other
Learning labs.
the learning labs. And it is so much time and effort and dedication of the people that are serving on those committees. It really opens your eyes. And that's just one little segment of the convention. Never mind everything else that goes on behind the scenes and all the volunteers. And I just don't think people realize how much effort and time people put into it
No.
if they're not volunteering
Yeah.
to do some of that. But yeah, it's very eye-opening.
Mm-hmm. Tish, how would you say the leadership role influenced the way you approach clinic and your students?
So, I think that that has given me more perspective on various aspects of the country. Like I have my own specialty in vestibular, but really hearing about other specialties like through like our guidelines documents committee. So being a little bit more well-rounded there. I also do have a class that's a leadership and professionalism class. And I
Nice.
started it, I think in 2024. So like right as I was coming on as president-elect. And it gives me a lot more information that I can kind of round out some of those lectures about why it's important to volunteer, why it's important to be a member of our organizations. And I've always been able to say that, but being able to see some of the intricacies of the organizations, and some of the other leadership roles I've had in other organizations really helps to provide some more clear context for why that's important, and how to be a leader, how to understand like what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, because not everybody is great at everything. Be able to graciously be able to understand your own weaknesses and how you can work around that or delegate or so those are the things that I've been trying to pass along to my students.
Such good skills, just like life
Yeah.
skills in conversations that I feel like I've been in some conversations about is we just expect students to know this stuff. But if it's not intentionally taught, we can't expect them to just know it. And so I love that you're teaching like delegation.
Yeah. And having you as a professor, that's like what an opportunity those students have. That's
Yeah,
pretty
so
pretty
lucky.
wonderful. But we know vestibular care is your specialty. And where do you see vestibular care in the next 5 or 10 years or so? Like, where do you think that's going to go?
So it's been interesting to watch over my career as it is. Like when I was graduating, CVEMP was just coming out, OVEMP wasn't out, VHIT wasn't out. So, our understanding of pathologies and disease isn't as clear as we knew. So I think that will continue. I think that our understanding of various pathologies and disease will continue to improve. Um, we'll also see some new tools, like I know Interacoustics is working on the functional V hit. And so I think we'll see some advances in some of our testing. And I think a lot more students are interested in it. I think there's more
That's good to
faculty
hear.
at universities that teach it. When I was coming up, I've presented at grand rounds and I've presented vestib, and I always ask about the students in the crowd and how many of them are students and how many of them are actually interested in vestibular. And it's been interesting to watch that number grow. And so I think our next generation really is interested in a lot more of these specialties. So I'm excited for that, to see more people providing that care. And then I think AI is going to be a big part of all healthcare kind of going forward. So that'll be one that we'll see infiltrate into vestibular.
How do you think that will affect vestibular? How do you think AI will affect vestibular?
So I think so there are some AI models out there about triaging patients. That was what Devin McCaslin did when he was still at Mayo Clinic in Rochester, was feeding information into this model to see, what types of patients really should be seen by audiology first versus maybe neurology or psychiatry. So I think there'll be that aspect. I think AI can also lend towards being able to like analyze eye movements better. Are we missing, we're relying on an etch a sketch essentially, but can AI help to detect more subtle eye movements, or better, analyze that data, as well as some of the decision pathways, knowing if we can feed in this data, does it help us to get that patient to the right provider more quickly and for better, patient outcomes?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Neat. I know. I think AI is going to be so neat and help us just streamline processes and better patient care, probably.
Right.
Yeah.
Tish, I know you're at Nova, a university type setting.
Mhm.
What is your, Noelle and I, coming from private practice world, how do you see vestibular working in private practice world? I mean, do you have friends who do it well, who you feel like these are the simple things that a private practice could do to incorporate this?
Yeah, one private practice that I would say that does it really well is Sam Biddles in
Mm-hmm.
Kansas. That's his primary function is
Mm-hmm.
vestibular. I know he does offer other services, but he went in there as a vestibular person.
Mm-hmm.
I think the one thing is that, and I've talked about this before, when I talked at Jill's conference, is that you don't need to jump in like all the way. There are ways to dip your toes in. I first of all, I think that fall prevention is always such a key thing, and just asking simple fall prevention questions and referring those people on, even if you don't do vestibular, those are the things that save people's lives.
Yeah.
Falls do have a mortality associated with them, and so if you do nothing else, asking about falls and referring is the most simple and basic thing somebody can do without actually doing anything vestibular.
Love that.
Yeah, that's important.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to like dip toes in, you could dip into just BPPV. You can
Mm-hmm.
buy goggles that are, $2,500 goggles and just do BPPV screenings.
Mm-hmm.
And if they have it, you could treat them. And,
Mm-hmm.
my patients are always the most thankful when they have BPPV and I can treat them in
Yes.
house. And then if not, just refer them on. So you
Mm-hmm.
don't have to necessarily just jump in with all, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment. So
Mm-hmm.
like there are ways to incorporate it without kind of fully committing.
Mm-hmm. Love
Yeah,
that.
and you know what
Love that.
I've done a presentation on diabetes and hearing loss the last few months. And it's really interesting to me about how there's just a few little tests that you can even do in your own office related to balance. Like one of them is a get up and go test, where it's
Yeah.
just a basic test that you can have the patient do just to get an idea of their balance. And so
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I've got to start really considering adding some of these services to my
Mm-hmm.
everyday office too. So
Mm-hmm.
there are things that we can do to just help people with fall prevention, even if that's where we start.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, thank you for making me always realize
I
I got
know.
to do more. I got to do
Little nuggets.
better.
I know.
And I think another area is some of the mindfulness stuff. We see that really flourishing in tinnitus.
Mm-hmm.
But those same types of, anxieties and depression really proliferate through the vestibular community too. And so I think that's another way that,
Oh,
we can support that. And, those are ways that you can also generate revenue as well.
Mm-hmm.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's talk about the students. So, what's your pulse on the students these days? And what can we do as a profession to support them more? I feel like they might be a little worried with all the talk about everything going on in the hearing aid world. So, I love to see that they're learning under you and they're learning vestibular. But what's your general sense of that?
So they're a little bit of a bundle of anxiety. There's a lot of anxiety, a lot of nervousness about decision making. I think that, just that generation that we're dealing with right now. So kind of that Gen Z kind of on the more young side of Gen Z, they're just a little bit more of an anxious group, which then can impact other things like going in and just talking to patients,
Mm-hmm.
picking up a phone call to talk to manufacturers. Like they're
Mm-hmm.
nervous
Oh,
to do all of
funny.
that, and some of it's
Mm-hmm.
just nerves of being a new clinician. And so we've really had to focus on a lot of that, mental support. Making sure that one of our other colleagues is doing meditation with our students. So, making sure that they are taking some of that time to decompress between semesters because we know it can get really hectic. Um, Also, just working on some of the professional issues. I was just at a meeting last week, and somebody who was in private practice was just saying they were doing, interviews for new staff or externs, and just things like not sending letters of, thank you for interviewing me, and some of those professional tidbits that they're not following up on. So those are some of the things like that we're seeing, and we're trying to tell them like, okay, you need to send thank you notes. You need to, they're like right now they're in like our students are in like the mix of like the externship process. Afraid, like if they want to take one site but they're afraid of this site and they're afraid to like remove their applications, like this is the part of doing business, like this is it. And so you can't just ghost them, like there's just like so many other little things that go into it.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Do you feel like students, when they come in as first years, are they excited about the profession? I feel like I've seen some conversation of, I would tell somebody to not be an audiologist right now. I'm like, I love my job. What are you doing that? But I see the financial side of it too, and the concerns there. But I just hope that that's not how students are feeling.
Right. I think students are really excited. I mean, they're coming into a profession. We see their interviews, we see their essays. They're excited about it from an aspect of being able to help people.
Yeah.
We definitely try to drive home, like I talked about, like, this is a business. Like you are in this to make money. Like we do this to help people, but this is your livelihood. And so I try not to scare them into, like with OTCs, like the sky is not falling.
Yeah.
Like we need to pivot as a profession as things change, and things will always change. But this is a really, I think we have great opportunities in vestibular, in audiology to help our patients across a wide spectrum of, ages, disorders, and treatments. And so, I think they are excited. I think that some of the discourse online is really disheartening to see people saying like to not go into audiology. And I would say, our salaries do need to increase. And that has been a discussion at the academy, is like, really, what is the root cause of why we're not seeing our salaries increase? And I know there's a lot of pressure on universities. I will say that, as an individual faculty member or as our department, our hands are tied as far as what we can charge for tuition. Our president dictates that, and the board of trustees. So like we've transitioned to a 3-year program to get them out, or a year.
Okay.
So like we're very cognizant of that, but we have very little that we can do as far as change. So, I think there's a lot of issues that our profession needs to work on. But I love audiology. I love what we do too.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to do anything else.
Yeah,
like,
we're nerds.
Why? Yeah. So, we really try to encourage our students to really, like, it's going to change. And I talk to them all the time. I say, especially in certain aspects, like technology is always going to rapidly change. I talk to them like, well, how long ago did we change, our Houston Westlake? That's from like the 40s. Right. But, how often are hearing aids changing? How often is vestibular testing changing? How often is, tinnitus management changing? So we need to be able to pivot and find our worth in that. And remember that we're in this to make money. This is, this is also how you have a life as well.
And it's okay for that. But we're still doing the hearing test the same way that we did when I graduated.
I know. That's the backbone. But then, like, to me, like that's like the minimal part. I think all of the other things that we offer is just so much more than we base a lot on the hearing test. But like, to me, that's just the foundation. There's so much more to add on top of that.
What advice would you give the incoming AAA president or students who want to learn more about leadership, or young audiologists who want to get into leadership?
Well, for the incoming president, I would say clear your schedule. You're going to have a lot of meetings. I think that leadership. So I would say first starting with volunteering. I think volunteering is such a critical part to any organization, whether that's your state organization, a national organization, a specialty organization. Like I'm also a member of the American Balance Society. Volunteering, it's very easy to complain about, this organization did this or this organization did that. If you're not volunteering, you're not helping to shape that. And really, all of these organizations are run by volunteers. Like there's
Mhm.
staff that help keep it together if you're lucky to have enough money for staff. But really, it's the volunteer driven aspect. So that's like step one. And, volunteer opportunities are varied. There's like,
Mhm.
we really try to create a variety of opportunities. So, like micro opportunities that are only a few weeks long, the kind of more
Right.
mid-level commitment that's several months or maybe a year or two, versus like a board commitment, which is a heavy commitment that's
Mhm.
3 years long.
Mhm.
Um, and really, thinking about why you want to see your profession succeed
Mhm.
and your organization succeed. And it is a very selfless role,
Mhm.
in these things. Like you may get some accolades, but you spend a lot more of
Mhm.
your time than people really realize
Mhm.
behind the
Yes.
scenes. And you don't necessarily always get kudos for that. And so I think you also have to go into any of these roles saying, like, I'm doing this for both me. I've learned so much by volunteering between my colleagues, between the topic we're working on, my
Mhm.
own leadership skills I've learned. So, you have to go into any of these roles really making it about you, your organization, and your profession. And just
Mhm.
knowing that, you're doing this to better things, but you may not always get that, pat on the back that everybody or that little gold star that
Yeah.
everybody desires, because there's a
Mhm.
lot more that goes into it.
Mhm.
Yes, thank you. All right, now let's go into our rapid fire questions.
Mhm.
Okay, first one. One word to describe your presidency.
I would say productive.
Productive. I
Mhm.
love that.
Love it. Love it.
You know what I was thinking? I was thinking of a word to describe you as resiliency.
Mm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
good.
I was just that word came to
Yeah.
mind. I was wondering if you would have that, but I love productive. So I would say
Mhm.
also resiliency. I love that about you.
You want me to take the next one,
Sure. Yeah.
Noelle? Okay,
Yeah.
if you could sneak one new course into every AUD program, what would it be?
I think it would be, some sort of class that deals with like real world aspects. And I've tried to
Love
do
that.
that with the course that I created, but just things like being more confident, understanding, like I see questions like on how to do CEUs,
Hmm.
like just those real world, how do you renew your license? Like
Yeah.
those real world, how do you
Yep.
charge and be confident in charging for what you
Hmm.
deserve?
Hmm.
And not backing down. So like just those types of things I think would be really
Love
Like
beneficial.
that.
real world, like a real world class. Like this is
Love
what you
that.
really need to know.
Yeah.
Time management. I feel like note taking. I feel like a
Yeah,
lot of
time.
young grads are terrible at time management and note
Yeah.
taking, and they take forever to condense
Yeah.
their thoughts. Yes,
Yeah.
real life would be great.
Mm. What's a coffee order that gets you through a committee meeting? All those meetings that you
Uh,
had.
let me tell you, it's any coffee really. I prefer a latte, but any coffee. And
Right.
honestly, if you see
Big
me at
dog.
any if you see me at any meeting, it's always a joke because I have multiple drinks. There's always a coffee,
Me
but
too.
there's like a bubbly water, there's a regular water, like some like
I love it.
Oh my God, I love it too. What is a sound that makes you happy?
um Oh, probably. So anything like any like little noises like my dogs make. So I am very
Oh,
much a dog person.
I
I love
know.
training my dogs. If you ever see me on social media, like I have dog stuff. And like not the barking. The barking can stay. But like any of those like little tiny sounds that they make
oh.
when they're stretching or they're, those are the things that make me happy.
Oh, I love it. What would you do if money wasn't a concern?
As far as a job,
Yeah, just as
yeah,
far as like a life choice or
Anything.
something.
I would just travel more. Um like I think audiology is, if I were to go back, audiology would be, where I'd want to be. There's definitely other things, like I would like to have more hobbies. Like I wish I had more time for other hobbies, like
Right.
travel. I love doing like makeup stuff.
Oh yeah, the makeup thing.
Yeah,
I remember you did
yeah.
a makeup class.
Mhm.
Yeah, so like
I
those
want more of that
oh, I should do some more of those.
when
Yeah,
you're done with your presidency.
when I'm
Yeah,
done.
tomorrow.
Yeah. Makeup class 101.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
but definitely more travel.
yeah,
That's
same.
good.
What do you think we could do to make our profession better for all of us?
I mean, having been online, I think just being kinder to one another.
Love it.
I really look at a lot of our social media, and people are just ruthless
Not
in some
nice.
cases. And I'm like, why? This is your colleague. And
Yeah.
I don't always see eye to eye with every single person out there. There's definitely people I have disagreements with, or I don't, um, I don't ascribe to certain,
They're
philosophies
just not
or,
for you sometimes.
Hmm.
but that doesn't mean I should be rude to people.
Hmm.
That's really one of the bigger things, is I think that we should all just kind of step back. But I will just say, like, that's just social media in general,
Hmm.
unfortunately, across the spectrum, not just in audiology. But I think
Right.
being kinder to our colleagues would be one, and then obviously supporting any of your like state or national organizations, I think
Yeah.
is one way to make it better, because that's how we get things accomplished.
Hmm.
Oh, I
Love
love that. So, in
that.
closing, Tish, thank you for sharing your reflection and your vision of the future. Leading AAA while teaching and specializing in vestibular, takes a lot of balance. Like you told us, you were pretty much in meetings if you weren't teaching. But something you clearly embody in more ways than one is you're willing to give back to our profession, to your students. And we're grateful for you and for your service and for being a part of audiology and being willing to serve on the board. And we are just very appreciative to have you here today. So thank you.
Thank you so much for
Good
having me.
good job with
So,
presidency. Congratulations and thank
Thank
you.
you.
yes, thank you. And so, in closing, this is another episode of the Sound Sisters, the Hearing Diaries. And until next time, and this is perfect for what you said, Tish, be kind and be brave. And thanks again for listening.
Thanks, everybody.